What do you think, Irina? Should we start? Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Are any of you still happy to be here? Yeah. Okay. Welcome back from the lunch. Very nice lunch. Thank you. We are back for a plenary panel, the second plenary panel of today, on bringing digital pedagogies into internationalization. For this panel, we have a chair, moderator. Her name is Shahira Noura. She works in the University of Göttingen in Germany on the team dealing with digital learning and teaching. She has worked on internationalization of the curriculum and on various projects related to development and implementation of digital tools. Before moving to Göttingen, Shahira worked at the United Nations University. Welcome. And I will leave it to you to introduce the other members of the panel.
Thank you very much, Pete, and welcome everybody who is here. Welcome to those who are watching us live, because this is also one of the panels that is live streaming right now. Before moving to talk a little bit about the subject that is, the interest of our conversation today, I'd like us to do all together something. I know there is more than one language spoken in this room, and so on the count of three, I'd like you all to say hello or welcome in a language that is different than English. I'll count to three. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. Well, that is a very, very difficult to learn, but at least you got it out. And with that in mind, bringing digital pedagogies into internationalization. As you heard, I'm from the University of Göttingen, and I started there as an instructional designer. I'll come to that later on. And this title of the session was basically summing up my job description or what was later on in the contract. The part of the internationalization, surprisingly, was never really difficult to explain when people ask me what I do. However, the digital pedagogies and bringing that into internationalization seemed to be a little more difficult. And I had the chance to work around 4 years with faculties around my universities, and with an amazing team, we brought more than 30 projects to success. I'll come to that a little bit later. Without further ado, I'd like to ask the members of the panel to introduce themselves. Thank you, Mark, for the inspiration. And instead of telling us about one thing people do not know about you, I'd like you to tell us about one thing you had, or an experience you had with internationalization or international context that changed your life. Take a minute, think about it. That happened. It can be as early as I was 5 years old, What did change your life in international context or related with internationalization? And I'll start to my right. Take it away. Yeah, please, all of you introduce yourselves and tell me about one thing that changed your life in terms of internationalization.
Hi, everybody. My name is Simone Hackett. I'm Irish, but I'm based in the Netherlands. I've been working there for a long time, 16 years. I'm a senior lecturer at The Hague University of Applied Sciences and also a researcher. I teach sociology and also comparative education. And I'm researching the effectiveness of COIL, empirical research. And something that changed my life, I was actually thinking about this earlier when Mark asked us, because it's a similar question a little bit, I think. Yeah. And I think for me, and it actually relates to, you know, my field of research now as well, is that when I was 13, I was introduced to the internet and also MIRC, you know, real-time chat. And that's when my dad showed me what it was and how we could so easily connect with people all over the world. And I just found this fascinating. And I think that was the moment I thought when I was, you know, a kid, I thought like Dublin is the most beautiful city in the world. And we didn't travel so much when I was a kid, so I thought it was the be-all and the end of the world. And then I started talking to people on the internet, you know, when I was 13 and hearing about their stories. It's strangers, you know, because back then you didn't know who you were talking to. Although it was my dad was monitoring it, of course. But, you know, that really opened my mind to the world and to how easily we can connect with people around the world. And I did not do a study abroad. So that's also something which is interesting for me, because a lot of people who work in internationalization did do a study abroad. But I didn't. I think it was the internet introduced me to internationalization. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Hello to everybody. My name is Zdravko Kalčić. I am rector of the University of Maribor, Slovenia, the second largest university in Slovenia, but it's not hard because there are only 3 public universities, but still we are proud on that. So to answer your question, actually, I had no such moment which would enlighten me. But of course, from a young age, I have always the desire to somehow see the world, although this was not so easy at that time in our previous state. But nevertheless, I found out that when you go abroad, of course, this enriched you a lot. But more than you go abroad, you appreciate the place where you stay. So in this respect, of course, I think that things did not change. Unfortunately, as you said, many people think that through the internet they can be present everywhere on the world, virtually, but between virtual world and the real world, I think there is a difference. So we should take a balance about both, and I know that we will succeed. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katrien Sproonje. I'm Latvian, but now based in Brussels for the work that I do. For the next 3 more weeks, I am vice president of the European Student Union, and from there on, the journey continues in the Global Student Forum. My main portfolio for now is internationalization and mobility, as well as inclusion and sustainability, among other things that we do as student representatives. But my most life-changing life experience in international context definitely is the European Student Union, and how I was introduced to it 6.5 years ago. I went to General Assembly not knowing what to expect, what's going to come out of it, and I never imagined that it would lead me to move to a different country to live and to work, and to associate my life with a more European lifestyle than I had before. And it has opened my eyes to what more opportunities are out there, that the horizons are way broader than Riga, in my case, just the city of Riga and Latvia. And it has made me the person I am today and the way that I see the world.
Thank you. My name is Ganna van der Brug. I work for Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, which is the German National Forum for Higher Education in the Digital Age. And within the forum, I work on facilitating knowledge internationally about digital transformation in higher education institutions. I think the experience that you're asking about, I think for me it was moving abroad about 25 years ago and living and working in different countries and realizing that in each country, even though I thought these countries are very similar to the Netherlands, that there are so many nuances and small things, like when you work somewhere and you really try to embed yourself somewhere while working, that this makes it very interesting to learn from each other in that sense. So I lived in Norway and in Denmark, and right now in Berlin in Germany, but I'm Dutch.
Thank you very much for sharing your experiences. You know, what you all said reminded me of many things that I can relate to, but I think what has changed my life is a conference that was happening at my hometown in Soes, and it was the International Conference of the Association for Ecological Economics, and basically you could think about the world coming to my hometown and me having the opportunity to meet the world. There wasn't enough time, neither were there enough language skills at that time, but it literally changed my life. And I think the reason why I'm here today with you, you know, the seed was planted in that during that conference. This morning we heard a lot about digital pedagogies, but we also heard about the challenges, the opportunities, and a few words, a few concepts stuck with me. We talked about the importance of dialogue. We talked about the importance of institutional support. We talked about the realities that everything that we are actually introducing these days to support internationalization is not only, you know, pink and unicorns. And so my first question to this round would be, where are we, and are we actually on the right path? And maybe Simone, I'll start with you. What is it that we're offering our students today in terms of internationalization, and yeah, what, with regard what you are doing at your work, what are the opportunities for students today?
Well, I think I'll go back to Robert Adai's keynote speech to begin with, because that's my expertise, which is on virtual exchange. So Robert clearly defined what virtual exchange was and what it includes. He mentioned that it includes various methods, telecollaboration, intercultural dialogue, and also collaborative online international learning. It's important to define those methods under virtual exchange, especially if we want to, you know, enhance the field, improve the field, offer better COIL courses to our students. So what is COIL? Maybe some of you know. I don't know, hands, who knows what COIL is? Okay, not everybody. So that's good. And has anyone taught a COIL course? Two people, okay. So maybe I'll just start with just explaining what COIL is, and then we can get to the, you know, how we're enhancing the COIL practice. So COIL is a method, okay? It's not a replacement for student study abroad. It's not a I don't see it as a stimulant for going abroad. Like, I don't see, okay, if students do a COIL course, this is how we'll get them to go abroad. I don't see it like that. I see it as a teaching and learning method which can be embedded within the curriculum, so that students will focus on curriculum learning, curriculum content learning, and also intercultural competence development. So it's not like you know, the poor man's choice for mobility or anything like that. It's a teaching and learning method. What it involves 2 or more educators based at different universities in different countries who connect either through their network or at a conference, or through their own university, through their exchange partners. They connect, they check out whether their curriculums align, and if they do, they can create maybe a shared syllabus, you might call it, or develop collaborative assignments for their students. So they will place students in teams teams from both universities, online teams, and these students will work on collaborative assignments together. And the focus is on curriculum content and also intercultural competence development. So in that case, it's based on theories such as social constructivism, so learning through social interaction, learning from one another and building on previous knowledge as well, each other's knowledge. And also the field of collaborative learning. So there's a whole field of research done on collaborative learning, collaborative online learning, which educators who design COIL courses can tap into to ensure that they are developing optimal COIL courses. What we've seen since, so I started teaching, developing COIL courses back in 2012. I was one of the pioneers along with John Rubin. He helped me develop my first COIL course. And of course, I brought it home to our university. It's like, oh, this is great, we should do this. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, whatever, this is whatever. She's the one who does that kind of stuff, but we're just going to continue with our own work. But then, of course, the pandemic hit, and everybody was forced to go online, and then that gave educators this, okay, we can do this. This is not as difficult as we thought, and also it was used as a replacement for students who were supposed to study abroad. But since then, we have seen it's become more centralized within universities. It's taken more seriously now. You see COIL coordinators being assigned in universities. We also have funding opportunities, national funding opportunities in the Netherlands. If you're an educator and you want to develop a COIL course, you get time to do this. You get money money in terms of time to develop this. So we see these kind of initiatives. Also BIPs, blended intensive programs from Erasmus+. There's funding there as well. So we see all of these initiatives, which are of course come back to our students if we can offer our students these opportunities. What I also see is it's also my field as well, is that more research being done on COIL, on the effectiveness of COIL, and also how students learn through COIL, because this results in evidence-based practice. So instead of just looking at like best practices and things like that, just going by implicit assumption, we actually can produce evidence that shows that COIL is effective or not, and this will help, improve COIL courses. So I think that's me speaking a lot now. Maybe I should stop. Okay.
Thank you a lot, Simon. So there is a lot going on, and there is an offer for students. Katrina, from your perspective, in your institution, from your organization, how aware are the students about all these possibilities, and what do you think is important for them when it comes to, methods for internationalization involving digital pedagogies?
The potential for different opportunities is almost endless out there, and we heard in the keynote speech what different opportunities are there, what is being offered, and what are the benefits, and what are some of the challenges out there. But from the student perspective, the biggest challenge when we're talking specifically about intercultural exchange, which is happening on virtual grounds or in blended forms, the biggest issue is the information accessibility and knowing about what is out there. It's very similar for physical mobility as well. Students just don't know what's out there and what are the opportunities for financial support and everything. But for the student, it is crucial to have this information in a very accessible and a very easy way. It needs to be easy to find and easy to read about what is possible, especially when the professor may not be as keen on introducing these things directly into the curricula, or they need to find it somewhere else when it's not common practice to have these different courses available to them. And if they need to put in too much effort in trying to understand and find, and what's going to happen, are they going to recognize this? Is this just for my own fun, just to find the people who else are involved, or to create more understanding? They're just not going to be involved. And then once the information is there, or the course is offered, and cases across Europe vary a lot about what is available, then it's also the other accessibility part. How ready are they to be involved in a most probably in foreign language, most likely English, not necessarily always, especially for those for whom English is not their native tongue. How ready are they to be involved? Do they have the necessary equipment, or even do they have a laptop to use on their own? We heard also in the keynote as well how many issues we're facing just because I don't know, they have bigger families, they're not so well off, they come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and here we're talking about different accessibility needs, and then we're talking about students with different impairments and how they can access all these opportunities, because it's not so easy to just design one course and then it's going to be for everyone. Sure, there are methods then to incorporate, but how are we assuring that everyone? They're saying that virtual exchange is then opportunity for inclusion, but even in those cases, we cannot forget that there still might be groups that just are not getting towards them. And for physical mobility, sometimes it's easier to talk about these things because it's been around for a lot longer. Up until today, there's still more people involved. It's a lot clearer what's there, but when it comes to everything digital, it's still something we need to understand. We still need to investigate what's out there. And talking from the other side, the pedagogical staff and the professors, they also need to have the necessary tools and necessary knowledge to facilitate all these courses. And there's just so much that needs to click together for all those courses and all those opportunities to work. And we're still, I think, a very long way from knowing and saying, yes, this is the perfect solution now, and we're probably never going to get to it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I mean, answering the question, are we on the right path? Apparently we are, but there is a long way to go. I mean, I was going to talk about the challenges a little bit later, but as we heard today from our colleague who is teaching music, improvisation is the best tool to move forward. And Zdravko, I'd like to ask you from the point of view of the university management, how do you address this problem of making information available? How does your university raise awareness about the possibilities for international, but also digital transformation within your university? How do you deal with that? What is your strategy?
Thank you for such an easy question, which is very hard to answer. But okay, yeah, I think that I can completely agree that we have now are witnessing now before and after Corona period. So maybe 4 or 5 years ago, if we would have this discussion, our perspective, our probably awareness of the possibilities would be much different than it is today, when we were all forced to just switch to another world, switch to another dimension of our work. But as we can all probably conclude, we all were more successful than maybe it could be expected because we were forced to do this. So this definitely left some traces in our mind, and now, of course, we are becoming slowly aware of all the possibilities from all the levels. And as you said, it was not only on the personal level, but it was on the organizational level, that if I, as a rector, would start to push on our colleagues in this direction, nobody would actually probably, or very few will follow. But today it's different. Today we all have this experience. Today we are all not so keen, but still much more stimulated to go into this direction. Especially, I would mention a very important incentive in some way in this is definitely the European University Initiative. University of Maribor is part of the Athena project, and there are a lot of activities going in this direction. We have blended learning, we have all other also courses. So we are concentrating on implementing these activities in the now first 3 years on a limited scale, but still they will be proven to be a perspective way to go, and as you said, we still have a long, long way to go to come to the goals, to the objective, but we always, at least this is my personal opinion, have to be conservative, innovative. That means we have to not forget that study is a journey, and each step on this journey has its meaning. It has to have the meaning, and we should not look for shortcuts, because all the shortcuts will not bring us to the goals that we want to. So we always have to evaluate each step that we make. And, but still there is no doubt, this is the direction that we have to go. The core method, as you said, is a splendid idea that has today much, or it is much more obvious as it was 5 years ago, because 5 years ago very few teachers believe that it is possible that you can invite somebody in your teaching hour, which is few thousand kilometers away. But today, this is something that is not a big deal. So I think, as you said, from the management point of view, of course, first thing is to raise awareness of the possibilities, as you also said. What can be all the possibilities that also teachers and students can use, why this is important, what it brings an added value to them, what is not possible to do on old-fashioned way. But on the other side, each step should be very carefully made, not to mean a shortcut, because our students are very innovative in searching the shortcuts. Of course, I don't need to mention ChatGPT and so on, but I won't go to this direction, which is not a danger. It is an opportunity if we will know how to implement it. So, and in the next level, of course, is, I would say, system solutions, which will enable teachers and students to achieve or to be included in all these activities and have no problems because we didn't solve some problem that should be solved before for them to be able to participate in it. And then step by step in this direction.
Thank you. It's a long journey, step by step. We need to stick to that. Hannah, you work for a forum where it's actually an ecosystem. You have the teachers, you have the students, but also the institutions themselves. What do you think the institution like yours is bringing to the table by supporting you know, the way or the journey towards implementing digital pedagogies for internationalizations? I am sure there are many instruments out there, but the general idea, what are you guys bringing to the table to support this whole ecosystem?
I think as a national forum in Germany, which is quite a special situation because higher education is organized on a federated level, and we are a national working organization. I'm not only working for this organization, but also for the European Digital Education Hub. So I can kind of talk from two perspectives in this sense. And I think what we can bring to the table, if I'm talking a little bit about the policy-making side, how to support new learning opportunities in the best way, how organizations can allocate resources and support skills development. I mean, these are things that we are really looking into. And yeah, for instance, heavy investing in faculty development. This was also already addressed in different sessions, I think, today. So this requires really like a strategic and concerted action from the policy-making side. And this is where we, as a forum, are supporting the policymakers with advice and guidance, but also like working within universities. So just a little bit more actually about this digital education hub, because the question this morning of, oh, if you were a minister or a policymaker, what would you do? And this kind of organization that was asked for, this collaborative space where educators can come together, like be in a community of practice, share resources and knowledge. this already exists, actually. So for anyone who's not yet a part of it or who hasn't heard about it, I think it's a really great opportunity on a European level to meet with colleagues in person, at workshops, online, working together in squads, for instance. But there's a lot of different kinds of knowledge building activities organized by the European Commission for everyone. So I can give some more information about this later, and I have a registration link. Basically, it's a Teams platform, so yeah, a free environment in that sense. And this is part of the European Digital Education Action Plan and one of the initiatives under that. Yeah, so this is a focus on professional development, and this is something we do with the forum and also with the Digital Education Hub. So.
Thank you for that. I'll turn to the audience and see if there are already comments or questions, and I'll gladly take some of these. Are we on the right way? Are we on the right path? I think we heard in this group that a lot has been done. The journey is still long, but we're getting there if a few conditions are fulfilled. Yes, please.
So, what I was wondering about is what would be your absolute dream scenario to take this to the next level, so where digital pedagogies really immediately take off on an international setting? What would be like the absolute fantasy solution that you might have and that doesn't exist right now? What would it be?
Maybe I can say something, but I'll give the floor after that to you. I mean, I think what could be really interesting is all these different European university alliances that are working together. I mean, this kind of European ecosystem based on European values, I think is a great chance actually for Europe. And for me, that would be like the ideal scenario, like a student journey does not stop at the walls of his or her education institution, but can easily go beyond that and is like geared towards lifelong learning. That would be my dream scenario.
I could not, sorry.
Yeah, I'm afraid my dream scenario does not include virtual exchanges per se. Probably in regard to internationalization, my fantasy is that everyone who wishes to go and can go on physical mobility. But then for everyone else, that there are the opportunities in place and that there are the resources necessary allocated for all the virtual possibilities to happen, and that no one is left behind because of bureaucratic or financial reasons, that everyone can be part of it.
Yes, I agree that the way in, or the answer on your question would go into the direction of how to actually combine all the diversities that are present in Europe, how to actually use this treasure that we have. And I think that European University Initiative actually is the way in which we have to go, because it offers us the different dimensions or new dimensions of European universities, putting our collaboration on the same platform where actually all these possibilities could be used. We are discussing different aspects that go in this direction, and I would say that combining physical and virtual and digital and whatever you want in the right ratio or right dimensions would be the way where we have to go. And by thinking about how we could, how European university could work, goes exactly in this direction. So students would enroll in a study program which would then combine digital pedagogy, virtual let's say, virtual work, collaborative work, and also physical a presence. For example, as we currently discuss, for example, study program where a student would first enroll in the Slovenia, then in the second year it will go to Spain, and the third year to Portugal, whatever. But still, in all these studies, there will be physical mobility, but also virtual mobility, because some of these courses that it will take could be also done in different way, using different methods. So I think as such, an balanced activities in all these directions, having in mind that we are not only giving young students the knowledge, but also try to educate or to raise them in the responsible persons, so they will grow also in the personalities. This is something that should be very carefully designed and balanced. Thank you.
So what can I say after all of that? No, I think my dream would probably be offering quality education to our students, and it's not necessarily that they would all have an opportunity to go abroad, but that they would all have an opportunity to get some international experience within their program, either through COIL or through the international classroom or some other internationalization at home practices. And these experiences would be quality in the sense that they're based on evidence that they work or they don't work. I think that for me that would be one of the dream scenarios, and also that all of our educators get more money or more time to be able to implement these, to design these kind of courses and implement them within their programs. I think that would be it.
I think a few inspiring things. The reality, though, can be sometimes a little bit challenging, and we heard about some of the challenges. I'd like to go back to what is it that we bring to the table. And very often we talk about our needs. What do our teachers need? What do our students need? What does the university need to provide? But I think personally that we forget that today, compared to 10 years ago, to 20 years ago, there are sets of things, of skills, of competences that both teachers and students bring to the table. However, because either they're not fitting the whole rationale, or they have not been explored, or they're rather informal, it's very difficult, and because there is no research upon them. So my example is, and I think we heard this morning, that it's important to integrate or to hear, to listen to the voices of the students, because they do bring something to the table. But how would we know if we don't ask them? How would we know if there isn't a dialogue? I don't agree with the fact that there are digital natives and the rest. I think that rationale is dangerous, because just because we are surrounded by technology doesn't mean that we know how to implement it in every case, in every context. Now, what is, to me, personally obvious, though, is that if we have people, say students, using the phone for so many things and applications, how can we actually take interest in what they are using and try to apply that in the educational context without assuming that they're distracted, that they're doing other stuff and they're not, listening. And I think my question again, if the students, for example, bring some kind of competencies, what do the teachers, what do they actually bring? Apart, and please, there are still a lot of needs to get the skills and the competences in terms of digital pedagogies developed, but what do the teachers actually bring, Simone? What do you think among your peers? What do you bring to the table that helps on this very difficult journey to get internationalization and to your dream scenario?
Experience. I think it's through trial and error as well. So trying something out, seeing whether it works. If it doesn't work, trying it again and switching things up. I think for me, that's where it comes. Some things don't work. So last year, I developed a coil course, and there were some problems in the design because of our constrictions in each university. And it ended up that we were working with Dutch students, well, a mix of international and Dutch students and American students. The American students were not so invested in the coil course. So what happened was the communication kind of broke down between the two groups. And in the end, the students were like, you know, Ms. Hackett, like, I think I would have rather just not done the coil course at all and just worked on the collaborative assignment with the students in our class. So that was really, for me, I was like, okay, we put all this work into developing a coil course, and now, yeah, it didn't work, or at least they didn't enjoy it, and, you know, it wasn't what I expected. So I think, for me, doing that and then seeing, okay, it didn't work, we need to change it, and we need to keep changing things and enhancing things. I think that, for me, yeah, would be one of the main messages, yeah.
Anyone else?
Yes, this is a real challenge. The first challenge to understand the younger generation. I'm a little older, so for teachers, the main problem still remains how to motivate students. From my experience, I had once, when I was visiting professor in Sweden, opportunity to actually convince students that they are really working a project for the Volvo company. So they work 24 hours 7. But today this is very difficult because sometimes it is difficult to actually convince ourselves and also students to distinguish between form and the content. What is the form, what all the tools that they have actually does not mean the content, but they are just a way how they can do something that they should do. So for me, the main challenge is how to actually combine the possibilities that they have. Every day there are new possibilities, there is new technology solutions, there are new way how to communicate, but many times in such experimenting we can come to the difficulties that some setups are broken, and then all the idea is then endangered. But still, as we discussed before, what is necessary, of course, first thing that is necessary is a robust environment where you can reach the goals, when you can achieve what actually this new technology brings you. And today we are unfortunately not yet there that we could say, yes, this is robust enough. You can connect all the students wherever they in Europe are, or in global dimension. And therefore we should very carefully design such education methods, but still they are so, I would say, also from motivating point of view and also from the educational point of view, interesting that we should not stop because of some technical difficulties, because 10 years ago, things that we are doing now was only a science fiction movie, but now we are living these science fictions. Hope not, but still.
I hear experience, I hear more commitment, I hear a trial and error. Anything else from your side? What do you think that, you know, our teachers, but anyone else brings to the table or could bring to the table to make this a successful journey?
I maybe rather not talk about the teacher perspective, but from the student perspective, they bring the user experience. And I don't know how many in this room are still students. Any students? I see one. Yeah, and I think this is, I don't mean to be critical towards the organizers. It's been an amazing conference thus far. But generally what we see, the students need to be brought to the table as well. And students need to be involved in designing the courses and designing the curricula and understanding what works and what doesn't. I do completely agree that generational change right now is more rapid than ever. I can't keep up with the ones born in 2000 anymore. It's completely different world now. But whenever you as education providers are in need of a feedback, do collect this feedback, but in a meaningful way. The students can bring so much information in such an easy way. There can be, 10 questions, that can be a questionnaire, that can be, use the phones, use whatever technology is available at the moment and put it on the screen. They scan the QR code, answer 5 quick questions, and you have collected the feedback. But then, it's also even more crucial what you do with that feedback and how you assure that the feedback loop is closed and that the student then afterwards hear what has been done with the information that they provided. And that it's not just going somewhere into the universe and forgotten, and that they see that, yes, what I said was useful, it's worth giving my feedback again, and it will be used, and it will be adjusted to the ways that what students need for ever-evolving society and education systems. We cannot stay as we were, and sure, COVID pandemic, it showed that we can change very fast overnight, but we still need to assure that the changes we are implementing, that they are meaningful, that they're not just change for the sake of a change, that they have a purpose. So from the student perspective, do bring us to the table. We can provide so much more than you can imagine, actually.
I think the message is clear. Yes, Hannah.
Yeah, I can only agree with that also, what we're seeing at our organization. And I think also someone from JISC is here. So Hogeschoolforum Digitalisering, but also JISC, I know we work a lot with involving students as digital change makers, as one of the groups in universities that can actually contribute to developing strategies for change in their institution. So that's something really important that I think many universities are probably also already doing, but it's really important, and it will also help us to maybe redefine what the impact is, as you were saying, Simone, of their experiences, and also, Katarina, what you were saying, what student success maybe looks like, because this is not just like a graduation rate or an employment rate or have they gone abroad or not. It's really about, how to help them or people thrive in their lives, in wherever they are, so to say. So.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Hannah. Anyone from the audience would like to add to that? Is there anything that we missed, and I'm sure we did, that should be brought to the table? Yes, indeed. Thank you for handing out the microphone. If you'd like to shortly introduce yourself and where you're coming from, and then
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Mariette Karangus. I come from the Faculty of Tourism, University of Maribor. I think what the teachers can add to the table is creativity. We should not forget about that, decades ago we were faced with other challenges and we thought that our profession will go extinct, but it still hasn't. I guess 30 years ago we had to answer the question how to use Google and other internet browsers, and many other tools were developed, on the way to get here. And now, since we are faced with digitalization, artificial intelligence and everything, we won't give up, right? I mean, there are so many things to be answered, and things will things will constantly change, and we will be the ones recognizing the change, noticing the change, and also providing the answers, initiatives that might be solved with the help of artificial intelligence, but still artificial intelligence and all the digital tools need input from a human being. And I think that the power of people in this position is to give input, to interpret, to ethically consider the solutions and provide feed forward, not just feedback, but also feed forward what we will do with information, what we heard from the students. And I think this is a very valuable information we should all keep in our head and really think about what you just said. I really appreciate that you pointed out this thing, because like you showed us, there are only few students here, and we are talking about how to teach that group of people or how to address the group of people that's not present here. So in a way, we are doing the very obvious mistake that we usually criticize our politicians for. So I think that was the point of the day, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Well, yes, please.
Yes, Moitze Meyer, College for Accounting and Finance. I would just like to ask one aspect which I think it was not so much comprehended. So in the morning so it's about inclusion in internationalization, but also in digital pedagogy. So in the morning we listened to keynote speaker talking about relatively small share of mobile students. And now you were mentioning this digital divide, not leaving nobody behind. Some students have less access to computers, to technology, etc. And I would just like to ask, do you think with introducing digital pedagogies for the positive impacts of internationalization, are we excluding the same groups of disadvantaged students, or are we managing to at least broadening the scope of included students? Thank you.
It's a really interesting question or comment that you make. There has been research done on this already by Christoph van der Mol, who looked at the different forms of internationalization at home and looked at students' social economic background to see what they were doing, okay? What were their choices? Were they going abroad? Were they choosing a COIL course? Were they doing an internationalization or a field trip? And what he found actually is that the students who come from socially economic lower backgrounds were not choosing internationalization options at all. So this is it's a really good study, and it really questions how our internationalization policies and how we are implementing internationalization within our courses. And of course, there's internationalization at home, which should be embedded in the core curriculum, but most of the time, COIL courses are in a minor, like an elective course, or it's only because it's quite difficult to organize them because you need to rely on a partner university. It's only one class that gets this experience. So it is really something we need to question. Are we reaching all of these students, you know? And if we're not, how can we? That really needs to be included in the policies. So it's definitely on the agenda, at least for our university.
Yeah, I can completely echo what Simone just said about accessibility and inclusion of different groups of students into internationalization practices. But this also comes down to a large extent the first generation students, those who are still debating whether higher education is even for them or not, because their parents did not get a higher education, so this is their first step. And I mean, there are several studies that show that the first generation students are more likely to be from socially lower economic background. They may have only one parent or no parents, and generally be more disadvantaged when they come to education. And internationalization is not the first thing on their minds. And that is just something that is maybe somewhere further ahead. Their main goal is to get through the education and finish and get a degree and get a job.
Yeah, this is exactly what his conclusion was in his article as well, is that these students don't have the social or the cultural capital to see the value of this experience. So they're just like, okay, I need the skills for my profession, which is, I don't know, whatever it might be, but the internationalization is not necessary. So it's exactly the same.
Yeah, so at this point in time that we are generally tending to exclude the same students, but then again, we can provide different opportunities for different groups who are being excluded due to different reasons, either for physical or virtual exchanges. And then we need to tackle them separately. We cannot look at this as something, one big idea of internationalization, but everything needs to be tackled separately.
Maybe to add on that from my experience at my university, I talked about the difficulty of people grasping the idea of internationalization when we started the project, and it had incentives to help the teachers design programs where they can actually continue to collaborate with their existing partners, but then implement methods and not many went to COIL, for example. Sometimes it was enough for them to have a joint classroom. Sometimes it was enough for them to have, teachers coming in from other universities. And I think the struggling point was the integration into the curriculum, that whenever it's an add-on, be it the internationalization as such or the digital, call it, aspect, it's a very big problem because it's seen as being not necessary, it's seen as being time-consuming, which it is. And so here, for example, on an institutional level, it's very important to seek systems, ideas, support mechanisms to make sure that it's integrated. And also, create the incentives. These might be monetary, but very often we realize it's about raising awareness. When we talk to professors in the physics, they're like, what are you talking about? We are already international. We have international students. We do work with international partners. We have international publications. There is no need for us to internationalize whatever. Well, you can imagine my face when I heard that. We ended up not doing the project with that physics professor, but with another one who had, for him, it was a necessity to create a collaborative content with everyone. And everything else with the digital aspect, tools, methods that came around was to support the original idea. So very often if we ask the right question, and in my opinion, it's why are we doing this? We will find, even though in a very difficult way, the systems to support it. Through open educational dialogue, through involving all the aspects and perspectives. And I'd like to, take maybe a last word from everyone in the panel about connecting the dots. There is so much that we have to do, but there is so much also that we have achieved. What do you think right now is your personal mission to advance into this difficult but feasible journey? Simone.
Finish all the studies that I'm working on. So the research, yeah. So the research that I'm carrying out to advance the field, so we have more evidence to go on when designing COIL courses. But of course, I was an advocate for COIL, for many years, but since I've started to research it, I get mixed results, right? So I find out that, yeah, COIL works for certain. I use control conditions to test the effectiveness of this COIL. So I see for some groups, COIL works, so it's effective. But for other groups, it doesn't, or we don't see such a big effect there. So there are other internationalization practices which we need to investigate and we need to, invest in. And COIL is considered the gold standard now. Everything's about COIL, but there's a lot more out there, and we don't necessarily need to spend the time on developing in-depth COIL courses. Can't believe I'm saying that now, because I used to be the inspirational one.
I'm sorry, I forgot the list of tasks in my car, so it is pretty long.
Well, pick your favorite.
Yeah, definitely. First, what is important is to raise the awareness of the possibilities, to raise the awareness of necessity, that we should go in this direction, that we should actually, from the managerial point of view, that we should provide to all our students and teachers the solutions that they will be able to implement and address all these possibilities. This is definitely the prerequisite of if we want to go or proceed in this journey. But things are very quickly developed. Our focus at the moment is, as I mentioned before, in developing further the Athena European universities, because there we see a lot of opportunities to address all these questions we are already addressing, and I think that with the time there will be also other issues opened, and what we have to do all the time is to re-evaluating our steps to see if we are reaching the goal, to see if we are actually not replacing form, content with the form, and this is the challenge that I think is big enough for us.
Thank you, Katrina. I know you're maybe leaving the institution, but what would you say its principal mission now to make sure the students get their experience?
I mean, once you get into education advocacy, I don't think you can ever leave, like fully leave. Just because I'm changing the hats doesn't mean I'm stopping believing in all that. But for us, it's more about assuring that first there is a proper balance between physical and virtual exchanges, and that one complements the other, and they don't necessarily need to fight. We don't need to look at that only one of them is the proper and the right solution. It needs to go hand in hand, even though I think the physical mobility is and should be the main form, but one can still complement the other and can still foster the possibilities even further. But what's even more important is that there is adequate resources allocated to creating all these virtual opportunities, and that there is the time that is needed, the resources, the training, and everything, every precondition to create the course, that it's out there, and it's not just on some enthusiasts' shoulders to do this, but that there is also from the policymakers' side the incentive to invest in the quality of the virtual opportunities, exchanges, and everything.
Thank you, Katrina. Hannah.
And supporting that, I would say that the systems and the digital infrastructure behind all this working well, that's something that I am very passionate about working on in the next years. I mean, there will be maybe 60 university alliances in 2024. And then imagine that they're all trying to work on solving maybe some of the same challenges. And that's a huge waste of like brain power, of public money, if we don't work together and make like the infrastructure work in the way that it's interoperable and that we don't all reinvent the wheel. That's something that I think is should be contributing towards success. And yeah.
And in the word of the big experts of internationalization and digital pedagogies, Sam Cooke, it's been a long time, and I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Thank you very much.
I'm not going to sing. Thank you to all the panelists. It was a very interesting discussion. It's always too short. We always have more things to talk about, but at some point it has to stop. So we go to the next part of the program, and we will have a coffee break. Now I have to start. It's later in the day. I have to start. It becomes more and more difficult for me to focus on the things I should not forget to say. So after we have a coffee break until